Sorry, I'm totally eating a sandwich while I'm recording this one. Okay, sorry. Probably shouldn't do that. So, what are we talking about today? Masters of the Universe Classics, right? We're off to a bang-up job in 2012, and it's time to start thinking about what else we can offer. And what have we offered in the past? Hold on, I want another bite of sandwich. Hmm, well, it's so good. Why are sandwiches so good? Hmm. All right, so we had done a weapons pack in the past because the vintage line had done weapons packs. So, doing another weapons pack felt like a really good idea. But when you do a weapons pack in a line and you're just doing accessories, there's certain rules. Rule number one, don't eat sandwiches when you record YouTube videos, even though they're so good. It's a chicken caprese sandwich. And one of the other rules is you need to use accessories from the same tool. Meaning, if you're going to pull accessories from one figure from their tool, it's very cost beneficial to also do other accessories from that tool. So that's kind of what you see in this pack. You see accessories that were already tooled together being reissued together. All right. The other big thing about this pack was it was kind of the make things right pack. There were a few figures that shipped in 2012 that didn't quite have all the accessories we wanted. So this was a way to, well, fix that and offer the accessories that didn't quite make it with figures. It's one of the things I loved about Classics. It made it such a great toy line. So let's talk about the first bunch, Drago Man. And it was great because we got to do a bunch of accessories for him, and some of them were newly tooled. Why would we newly tool accessories for Drago Man? Well, he was part of the 30th anniversary line, which was a line of 6 figures created brand new for 2012, the 30th anniversary of He-Man and Masters of the Universe. And different people who'd worked on the brand were creating brand new characters to recreate the feeling that we had in the 80s of first seeing characters as toys. Go see his video for more about that. So Drago Man was the creation of the Four Horsemen, and we kind of just let them create whatever they wanted. They were very clever in the sense that they thought about future shared parts, like how his wings would be used for Granomir, but they also really went all out and had this huge character with a giant tail, a giant head, giant wings, and a huge number of accessories. Flaming sword, unflaming sword, shield that had flames that you could pop off, flaming whip. It was awesome, but we couldn't quite afford all of that. Well, this was the chance to kind of fix that. When you got him in the pack, he only came with the flaming sword. We had to drop the shield, we had to drop the whip, and we had to drop the unflaming sword. So I felt that the Horsemen had done so much for the brand, so much for the line, that I wanted to make it right. So we were able to tool up the additional accessories that they had designed, some of which had been shown off at Comic-Con, and I was so glad when we presented this pack at the following Comic-Con, and Eric, who designed the character, was just so elated to finally get these accessories. And I was so happy about that because I really wanted to do right by them. And we hadn't really told them how to budget the figure, so they put a lot of stuff into it, more than we could afford. But this was great because with the addition of the weapon pack, we could now get out the accessories they really wanted, including the unflamed sword, which I thought was really cool. It wasn't something I felt comfortable doing with Mighty Spector since I created him, and I know there was a lot of pushback on this character because, well, I don't know, I created him and everyone thought he looked exactly like Deadpool. He was supposed to have a whip that interchanged with the knife, and it was shown when we showed him at New York Comic Con. But again, fans were already doing fine customizing Spectre on their own and giving him different looks, so I felt like, we can leave the whip on the cutting room floor. Although it would be nice if Mattel would ever issue it. Alright, enough of that. Let's talk about a stick. And not just any stick, but Horde Prime stick. Another character that, well, the Horsemen went really, really awesome with. They made this character amazing. He was taller than most characters because of the taller boots. He had a huge helmet, huge cape, came with alternate heads, alternate arm attachments, and, well, he was supposed to come with a staff. But like with Drago Man, we couldn't afford the staff because of how much other stuff he had. The big helmet, the big cape, the alternate head, etc., etc. Did not come with a chicken caprese sandwich, though. That's what I have. Alright, enough about my sandwich. So, one thing that members of the Horde do is they carry around big sticks, right? I guess so. And it felt like to have a character who was the absolute leader of the Horde above Hordak. If Hordak came with a stick, well, at least in the 2000X Staction figure, Horde Prime should have his stick too. And the Weapon Pak was a chance to do that. So it became a newly tooled item. This was the first time the Weapon Paks had tools allocated to them in a budget so that we could actually create new items because, hey, the line was doing so well. And whichever way you wanted to display Horde Prime or just show him off with his younger brother, now they could have sticks together. And there's nothing like two brothers coming together with giant sticks. It just says so much about giant sticks. All right, now we get to talk about one of my favorite characters, Teela, who, yes, was my animation crush. I should do a video just about animation crushes. It's like such an interesting topic that as kids we could have crushes on, drawings. Anyway, enough of that. So, Teela had an interesting history. I've done many videos on this, most of which I did not eat a sandwich during. And she was supposed to represent two different characters. She was the warrior, she was the goddess. When she wore the armor, she was the goddess, blah, blah, blah. This wasn't really explained to kids that well, and most kids in the 80s just assumed the armor was for her, and that you could put snake armor on her. Well, no matter how you displayed her, from the front, from the back, sideways, or up and down, but not through time, she had really bright red armor, which was cool. And as a kid, I loved this armor. And Origins did it really well. They did very bright red armor on her. But when we did her in Classics, the armor was muted a little bit. It was made more kind of, I guess, battle-ready or more adult collector-ish, if that's a word, to be more adult collector. And it was one of the things that kind of always bugged me in the line. And I kind of really wish she had more reddish armor. And, well, as brand manager of the line, sometimes you get to do what you want. Not often, but sometimes. And one of those times was this time. So doing her armor in brighter red was high on my priority list. The other thing was, Teela came with a lot of stuff. So if we did her red armor and her staff in red, it meant we'd have access to all the other things she came with in that tool, which included things like the bird and the shield and the sword. So it was a good tool to exploit, if you will, because it gave us a lot of different items that were in that tool if we were going to use it for the pack. I hope that made sense. So Teela now had even more choices to display her, and she's one of those characters I feel like you really have to do right to, because she's a core character, she's been there since the beginning, and I think it's pretty clear if you collect classics that I'm a huge fan of Teela. I was always big on getting her out and doing new versions of her, and hey, now you could have her in her bright red armor. Alright, let's move on from Teela to her adopted father, Duncan, aka Man-at-Arms. Now, Duncan obviously has everything, because he invents everything, and he's got some of all that, but there was something that his action figure did not have, and that was the big blue gun that he had in the 2000X series, the Mike Young Show, or 2001 series, whatever you want to call it, and fans really wanted him to have the successor in Classics. We couldn't afford it with the original release, but the plan was that we want to get it out there with a variant of him, and he does show up in quite a few lines with this big blue cannon that attaches to his arm, including the original minis. It even showed up in Revelation as sort of an homage to the 2000X blaster. It wasn't quite the same, but you got the point. It was big blue and had a red button. A lot of fans used the actual 2000X gun on their Classics figure, which, was legitimate, but it didn't quite look right. I mean, well, the scale was a little off, and plus it shot a projectile, which nothing else in Classics did except the Wind Raider, but that's a story for another time. And the Snake Man-at-Arms figure was supposed to have this blaster, because, well, it was a new way to release Man-at-Arms, and the idea was to give some mix-and-match parts so you could display Man-at-Arms however you wanted to. As a reminder, he became a Snake Man, he got better, and then in the issue that came with the DVDs, which was episode 39, he becomes a Snake Man permanently. This was done by Mattel in order to give the Snake Man a character who could create vehicles for him. So Snake Man-at-Arms as an action figure wound up being a little bit of a disappointment to a lot of fans, because it basically was a new head, new decoed armor, slightly new arm and leg pieces, but he didn't come with as much as he was supposed to, which was the blaster. He was supposed to come with the blue blaster, and he was supposed to come with the another head. So, yeah, fans of Man-at-Arms, and probably Man-at-Arms himself, was not too happy with us. So, while we didn't get to the alternate head quite yet without the helmet, this was something, it took a couple of years, but we did finally get to release. We'll get to that in time on this channel. But for now, at least we could get to the blue blaster, which just snapped right onto his arm, and hey, now you can finally have a way to arm up Man-at-Arms in his 2000X look. Didn't come with Snake Man-at-Arms as proposed due to tooling costs, but hey, it was out. Alright, next up, we're on a Teela roll. We did her adopted father, now let's talk about her mother. So, the Sorceress, Tila Na, in her white attire that she wears in the Temple of Darkness mini-comic, actually 2 or 3 mini-comics, plus kind of movie-esque and even New Adventures-esque if you really, want to talk about the white look. The point is, she also came with a bunch of cool stuff. She came with the staff, she came with the orb holder, which was newly tooled for her. She was released for New York Comic Con as a repaint exclusive, and we made the wings translucent, and etc., to make her special. But she was a sad white bird lady. Why was she a sad white bird lady? Well, she didn't come with her bird. And this was a chance to do that, especially because the bird tool, the eagle, was in the Tila tool, because Tila originally came with the orange version of Zor. We did do the red and blue version with the original Sorceress, but the point was the tool was with Tila. So now the bird could live on in yet another repaint. We repainted this bird a lot. We even used it in DC. Now, one thing was an issue is the stand was not included, and I kind of wish it was, because you really had no place to put white Zor, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better word, or silver Zor. The other birds, including Screech and Glory Bird, came with stands, so you could, put them on a stand. Now, you could obviously perch the bird on a character's arm, and this worked perfectly fine, whether it was Tila or the Sorceress or any number of characters, and some fans found this perfectly fine. Others were bitter till the very end that there was no stand. Of course, you could buy stands in some of the other weapon packs, but either way, a bitter fan is a bitter fan. And if you wanted to clip her onto the staff, hey, that worked too. All right, let's go on the opposite side, from the good guys to the bad guys, and talk about Keldor and his dueling swords of dueling. Except I'm going to take another bite of my sandwich, because it's so good. Okay, so Keldor, when he was released as a figure, he came with 2 sides of the purple sword. It was the first time we did both male and female halves in the same color. And this was to replicate the 2000X sword he had that was in 2 pieces. It didn't go over that well. Maybe it would have gone over a little better if we painted it more like the 2000X sword, which was supposed to be the 4 Horsemen's new sort of iteration of the classic sword, that Skeletor had it, which is why Man-at-Arms needed to build him a new one, but that's a video for another time. Actually, it's already been done. You can find it on this channel. The point is, fans really wanted his actual 2000X sword, so I wasn't trying to disappoint fans by not having this come with Keldor. I thought we were being clever giving him the 2 purple ones. Well, we also had an issue with lemons making lemonade, as the great philosopher Unknown says, and that was when the factory came back with the sword, they fused it together. They didn't realize it was supposed to go in 2 pieces. So we got the original PP production pilot versions that it was one solid piece. Well, again, lemons to lemonade, we just gave this out at PowerCon as a special gift to fans, because we had like 500 units that were fused together. And then we told the factory, no, for the rest of the production run, you need to separate them. Like that old song about, keep them separated. All right, that's what happens when I eat sandwiches. I start singing. All right, so let's talk about this little blue shiny disc of awesomeness. And if you don't recognize it, it is a shield. It was the shield that came with Tila. See, once again, the Tila tool. But this time for Evelyn, main squeeze of Keldor. See, look how we're like going with relationships here. So Evelyn has come with quite a few accessories over the years, but she's never come with a shield. Why give her a shield? Well, one, it works very well with her color scheme, and it's designed to be the color scheme of Evelyn. And while the vintage figure only came with a staff, that was the magic wand, if you will, with the orb or the fortune ball, etc. on top, there was a lot of art in the vintage era that had crystal ball. That was the word I was looking for. A lot of vintage art had her holding a blue shield, which was the same design as Tila's shield, since Evelyn also used the same body as Tila, the same outfit, like they shopped in the same store. So, once again, as I noted, since we were using the Tila tool, we got access to the shield. So it was a great way to have an additional accessory, because it saved development using the same original tool that accessories came in and maximizing it that way, as opposed to picking, one item from each figure that was a bunch of different tools. And if there's one thing about Evelyn, you want to keep her happy. You don't want to get on her bad side. So we gave her a shield. Speaking of shields, that brings us to our very last item, which is, well, this green shield and green mace, which was an interesting story into itself. So if you don't recognize what you're looking at, These were the accessories of Clawful from Masters of the Universe Classics. He had that new shield that the Four Horsemen created as a second accessory, because I insisted every character have 2 accessories, so that when we did an eventual retail release, we could take away one and remain special for those who bought it online. And he came with his green club. Well, the thing is, when Ruben designed this weapons pack, even though he is, he has a lot of experience working on MOTU, he, I think, had forgotten the color of Clawful's mace. I remember I was talking about this afterwards, and he was like, oh yeah, I just kind of forgot what color it was originally. So originally, it was green, the one that came with him, right? So when he did a repaint, he repainted the shield in green, because that was the sort of opposite color scheme of red, and then he repainted the mace in green. So you basically got Clawful's mace in a slightly different green. It's alright. Hey, things like that happen. It's not the end of the world. That's lobstertainment. What can I say? So the mace was basically almost the same mace you already had, but there was so much other awesomeness in this weapons pack, it really didn't take much away from it. And we had very few complaints, though we had some. Because, what's a fan base if they're not complaining? So that was the Great Wars weapons pack. And if you want to know more about the Great Wars, well, just click on the link above. There's a whole video on that, too. It's pretty cool.